Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today we are going to be looking at Arqit Quantum, ARQQ,
Right.
as of March 17th, 2025.
Okay.
We've got some pretty interesting information here that we've both taken a look at.
Yeah.
And our goal is to try to understand what's going on with its price. It's currently at 16.353 cents. That's up from a $15 close the day before.
Right.
So let's take a look at the various factors here.
Yeah.
Everything from the quantum computing sector itself
Right.
to Arqit's specific focus
Yeah.
and the technical picture as well.
It seems like there's a lot going on with Arqit's valuation. It's always interesting to try to untangle these things and see what's driving the price. Is it just one thing or is it a combination of factors?
Right. So let's start with just the general feeling around quantum computing stocks. It looks like there's been an increase in overall interest.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. We've seen a lot more chatter on platforms like X, and there's generally a more positive sentiment in the market regarding the quantum computing space. And that's interesting, especially considering some of the volatility we saw earlier this year, even with Arqit, dipping down to $11.11 on March 10th before it bounced back recently.
Yeah, and do you think that some of this renewed interest could be due to actions taken by some of the bigger companies? I seem to recall something about Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think putting this in context, Amazon coming out with their new quantum chip in late 2024, that definitely helped keep quantum computing on the radar. These sorts of announcements from major tech companies can really have a ripple effect. It's almost as if their validation of the technology's potential draws more attention and investment to the field as a whole.
Right, right. So, moving beyond just the general sector enthusiasm, what about Arqit specifically? Their narrative around quantum encryption seems to be a pretty big part of their story.
Yeah, absolutely. Arqit's focus on providing quantum-safe encryption through its quantum cloud platform is a major selling point. This is especially true considering the growing concerns about cybersecurity as we potentially enter a world with powerful quantum computers that could break existing encryption.
Right, and it seems like that narrative is resonating with at least some investors, even without much recent company-specific news.
That's right. We've seen some posts on X, around March 12th, suggesting some speculative buying based on how they're perceived as addressing those future cybersecurity threats. It just goes to show how a company's vision, anticipating future needs, can really fuel investment, even without those big product announcements or immediate breakthroughs.
So now stepping back a bit, how do you see the bigger trends in the tech market impacting Arqit?
That's a great question. I think it's important to consider the broader tech market, which has been kind of a mixed bag lately. We've seen some companies like Nvidia report really strong earnings, only to then see their stock price drop on guidance concerns.
So it's not always smooth sailing for tech stocks,
Yeah.
even with positive news.
Exactly. And in this kind of environment, a smaller tech company like Arqit may actually benefit from speculative interest in these next generation technologies. It's kind of reminiscent of the whole AI craze back in 2024, where investors were really looking for those companies that would shape the future.
Let's go back in time a little bit here. It seems like there might be some older analyst sentiment that's still influencing things.
It's interesting how previous analyst opinions can have a lasting impact. H.C. Wainwright on December 31st, 2024, they raised Arquit's price target quite a bit. Actually, they raised it to $52 from 20 certain dollars. And the reasoning was that, the conditions were improving for smaller tech companies and quantum computing was going to be a big deal in 2025.
Oh.
So, that kind of positive outlook, even from a few months ago,
Right.
can still stick in investors' minds.
Yeah, especially if there hasn't been any major negative news to counter that optimism. But it's interesting that we haven't seen any new analyst reports that seem to be directly connected to this recent price jump.
That's an important point. It does seem that the recent increase isn't necessarily tied to fresh endorsements from analysts.
So let's dive into that March 17th trading activity a little bit. Sounds like it was a pretty volatile day for the stock.
Oh, yeah, it was quite a ride that day. Arqit's trading range was pretty wide, hitting a high of 17.385 cents and a low of $15. That kind of intraday swing really underscores the volatility that you often see with stocks in this space.
And that 9% increase from $15 to 16.353 cents, what do you think was behind that?
Well, most likely it was short-term buying pressure. It could be tied to those posts we saw on X or maybe even just rumors floating around, who knows. This kind of reaction to social media sentiment isn't uncommon for small-cap stocks, especially when there isn't any immediate earnings news to focus on.
So let's break down Arqit's recent stock performance in a bit more detail.
Sure, let's look at the numbers. So as of March 17th, 2025, the price was 16 times 353 cents. That gives us a market cap of roughly $191.2 million. And as we mentioned earlier, on that day, it opened at $15, hit a high of 17.385, dropped back down to $15, and then closed at 16.353 cents.
And what about if we look at like a 1-month time frame?
Over the past month, we've seen a decline from about $15.08 on February 18 down to that low of $11.11 on March 10. But then, of course, it's recovered to where it is now.
In the bigger picture, like over the past year.
Well, over the past year, Arqit peaked at $38.84 back in December of 2024. But then it fell quite a bit, down to $12.71 in February of 2025. The current price of 16.3550 cents is still below where it was a year ago, at $18.175 in March 2024.
Okay. And just for context, what was the highest price the stock ever reached?
Oh, the all-time high. That was way back in 2021, and it was a whopping $470. That just goes to show the wild ride this stock has been on, the huge climb, then the big fall, and now maybe a period of stabilization, or who knows, maybe a new growth phase.
So, looking at all this data, have you noticed any recurring patterns in how Arqit tends to move?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely this pattern of volatility, these sharp drops followed by periods of recovery. There also seems to be a correlation with positive sentiment surrounding other quantum computing stocks. When the sector as a whole gets some good news, Arqit tends to benefit.
And what about those key price levels you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, that $15 level is interesting. It's acted as support recently, preventing further declines. And in the past, it's also acted as a resistance level, preventing the price from going higher. It will be interesting to see if it can break through that level. And then, of course, that high of 17.385 cents from March 17th, that could become a new resistance level that the price might struggle to move past. Think of support levels as floors that the price bounces off of, and resistance levels as ceilings that it struggles to break through.
Okay, so for our listeners out there who might be thinking about investing in Arqit, what are you seeing as the potential opportunities based on all of this?
Well, for short-term traders, if the price can definitively break above that 17.3855 resistance level, there could be some momentum there, maybe even up to that $20.05 level we saw back in January. Of course, using a stop-loss order below $15 would be a smart way to manage the risk.
And what about longer-term investors?
For those with a higher risk tolerance and a longer time horizon, Arqit could be an interesting speculative play. They're focused on quantum encryption, and they have a relatively small market cap. That means there's potential for significant growth if the technology and the company itself are successful in the long run. But, got to emphasize patience here. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. There's going to be volatility.
What if the stock price drops again?
Well, if it falls back to that $12 to $13 range, which has been a support level recently, that could be a buying opportunity. A chance to get in or add to your position at a lower price.
Of course, as with any investment, there are risks. What are some of the key risks that investors should be aware of with Arqit?
Well, a few things come to mind. First off, they don't have a price-to-earnings ratio, which suggests they might not be profitable yet. That always adds an extra layer of uncertainty. Plus, you got increased competition from those big, established tech companies that are also moving into the quantum computing space. And as we've seen, Arqit's stock price can definitely be affected by broader downturns in the tech market.
All right. Let's dig into the technical analysis a bit more. What are the key indicators saying about Arqit right now?
Well, from a technical standpoint, that 9% price jump on March 17th is a positive sign, at least in the short term. Our estimate for the 50-day moving average, which basically tells us the average price over the past 50 trading days, is somewhere around $15 to $16. The fact that the current price is at or above that average could signal a continuing upward trend in the near future.
Okay. What about indicators that give us a sense of the longer-term trend?
The 200-day moving average, which looks at the average price over the past 200 trading days, that's more of a long-term indicator, is probably still somewhere between $20 to $22. The fact that the current price is below that longer-term average suggests the overall trend over a longer period is still downward, so we can't get too excited just yet.
What about momentum indicators like the relative strength index, the RSI?
Right. So the RSI has probably moved from being oversold, below 30 back around March 10 to somewhere more neutral, maybe even slightly overbought, maybe somewhere in the 50s or 60s. This indicates some increasing buying momentum, but we're not at those extreme levels that would typically signal an imminent reversal.
Okay. And you mentioned some important price levels to watch. Can you remind us what those were?
Sure, the key support levels are $15 and then further down around that $11, $12 range. As for resistance, we're looking at that 17.385 high from March 17th and then higher up around $20.05.
So taking all this into account, what's your general recommendation for Arqit?
Well, we got this short-term positive momentum, but the longer-term trend is still down. So I'd say hold for now, but with a cautious trading approach. There's definitely potential for more gains in the short term, but we haven't seen a confirmed reversal of that longer-term downward trend. Keep a close eye on that $15 support level and the 17.385 resistance level to see where things might be headed.
So it looks like the recent movement in Arqit stock is being driven by a mix of things. Center-wide excitement about quantum computing, continued interest in their quantum encryption technology, the overall state of the tech market, and some lingering positive sentiment from late 2024. The technical analysis suggests there could be a short-term upward trend, but it's wise to be cautious. So, what are your thoughts on all of this? What other questions do you have about what's shaping the future of quantum computing investments? Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you want to hear more about this in the future.
You bet.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the world of investing.